Okay, we're going to read from the second Bunnie periodical. It's called Voyeurism, and it's in this very radical and oddly shaped square version. A lovely lady on the front and lots of other lovely pictures in the middle, as with the first. With Voyeurism as a title, I thought I would do a story about the epitome of voyeurism, reality TV, which I can sometimes be obsessed about. So I wrote a story called After Hours, and I've edited it down, this version, but I'm going to read what I've edited for you. Okay. The bulbs flickered and the cameras flashed. Our heels clattered onto the rain-soaked pavement outside whatever that week's fashionable club to be seen at was. The brash East End voices shout out the name as they point their lenses our way. Candice, here love, this way, Candice. The name they shout is not mine. The thousands of glances lost in the frame centered on one point, her, my friend. Candice is my best mate and has been since we were at school, but back then she was known as Sarah Churchwell, to be exact, and my, how she has blossomed into what we see today. In the 5 years since we left those hallowed halls in Ealing, full of childish gossip and sometimes cruel taunts from the bigger girls, in celebration we ceremoniously burned our shirts that were ripped at the seams and scrawled upon with crude suggestions and the signatures of many that we hoped we'd never see again. At school she was quite a mouse. A fringe covered her face, she wore long, baggy, black cardigans over her uniform, and she had unsightly mounds of hair sprouting from everywhere. That wasn't until her mother entered the both of us for a makeover paid for by the features department of one of those chat magazines that are known for their reality stories about cousins sleeping with each other. Sarah came out of it a completely different person. The photographer on the day sensed this and recommended her to an agency who promptly took her on. She left her HND in nursery studies a few days later and decided upon a career in modelling. It was around this time that she became Candice, and surprised us all by being the fourth person to enter the Big Brother house that summer. Weeks later, and after an incident involving the visiting exchange contestant from the Australian version of the show, which led to a girl-on-girl lip lock in the garden late one night, she was the last to leave to a crescendo of fireworks and a queue of fascinated journalists. Since then, nights out with Sarah have been a lot different. The two of us piled into one of the sea of black cabs that filled the street. "The mandarin, please, mate," she ordered, as she crashed back onto me when he suddenly pulled away. The effects of a shared bottle of Moet made my head swim. I glanced over to Sarah, who was checking her emails on her Prada phone. A certain male pop star from the States had arrived in town and had contacted Candice through her agent and made it known that he'd like to meet her. He'd done a show at the O2 Arena sometime in the weeks immediately after her big media blitz and seemed to be rather fascinated by this girl everyone was talking about. I imagined the pop star's tattle-reading PR assistant looking down her nose at the idea upon receiving the request and possibly thinking twice about warning him off. However, the invitation to come to meet him in his hotel bar after a long day laying down tracks at Abbey Road eventually surfaced. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered to me out of the earshot of the driver, "do you think I'm actually going to get to fuck Troy Stanley?" "Probably," I smiled wanly and rolled my eyes, knowing full well from the current issue of Grazia the number of peroxide blonde starlets he'd been seeing with her already. Let's just say he had a type and Candice fits right in. I do not. I'm short with dark hair and I'm in the wrong weight category for him. Am I going to get ditched at some point then, I mused. What? Or am I expected to just wait round for you until you're done? You mean if me and him, you know? Yes, if you know. You can always watch, she laughed. I'm sure. I bet he'd love that. He probably would. I wouldn't mind either. I turned quickly towards her. Really? Yes, she pondered casually. It would really turn me on. She watched as I blushed. Gosh, I'd never known this about her before. This, my school friend. The girl I had double mass with when I was a teenager. The girl who I stood outside of the offline centre on Shepherd's Bush Green with and flirted with older men in the hope that they would go inside to buy cigarettes. She wouldn't be into someone like me. Then it dawned on me. This was also the girl who had drunkenly snogged at a fifth former's party in his mother's bedroom after one too many Smirnoff meals. It The girl that often complimented me on my figure at the gym and had, yes, snogged a female trainee lawyer from Wagga Wagga on live TV. "Could you pull in around the side, pal?" she shouted at the driver, leaning forward. "What's going on?" I asked. "This publicist is meeting us by the kitchen. There's loads of paps out the front, waiting for him," she replied, sitting back and placing a casual hand on my bare thigh. It was a hand that was not unfamiliar to my skin. We've always had that loving demeanour between us, a closeness, a natural bond, but this was such a touch that meant so much more at that moment. Whether it be the excitement of this fast-paced life of celebrity, meeting the winner of the previous year's American Idol, or the fact that we were dodging the press, I felt a rush inside of me. The photographers were all distracted at the goings-on in the hotel lobby as our vehicle sailed by them and swung round the side of the building. She palmed the driver a 20, tipping heavily in the process, and stepped out of the held-open door. We rushed into the bar and roped off section where our superstar awaited. Heads turned and men ogled as we strode through hurriedly. Troy was already surrounded by people. He was very casual in ripped jeans and a faded t-shirt depicting an old rock band that he probably didn't own anything by. We were soon offered champagne and a seat in the booth. As the bottle quickly emptied, the pop star got braver and his hands began to disappear into the tight space between Sarah's legs as they kissed like two hungry and curious 13-year-olds. Soon, though, the star made a decision for everyone in attendance, and grabbing a fresh bottle of fizz in one hand and my best friend's hand in the other, he announced to those in attendance that the party was to continue upstairs. I stifled a yawn and pointed at my watch. Sarah pleaded with me, so I dutifully relented, following the couple and four other people to his suite on the fourth floor. The others soon departed and left us as Troy made it embarrassingly aware to everyone that he wanted to have a three-wheeler with us. "Join us, babe," the cocky pop star announced minutes later as my friend took the full length of him into her mouth. I shook my head instantly and I said, "I'm cool, just watching, thanks." He shrugged his shoulder and tipped his head back, groaning, "Whatever." "Play with yourself," I saw her mouth to me as she was filled with B-list cock. I felt myself blush even more, but something compelled me, something willed me to adhere to her whim. Troy slowed a little and glanced over. He grinned, still chewing his gum incessantly, as I leant back and against the unused writing desk and pulled the hem of my skirt. I rubbed my clit through my panties. "Take them off and let's see you," he called over with bravado. I felt myself frowning at him a little. A rush of jealousy ripped through me as I watched him indulge in my friend's body. Actually, I wished that he was completely out of the equation and back downstairs with all the hangers-on, while I shared the king-size bed this guy was now bending my friend over. "Please, babe," she said to me, "I'd like to see." I pulled my G-string down to my knees, parted my legs a little and pulled my dress up again, exposing my bare hairless crotch for them to both see. I noticed how wet I was, and the sounds of my self-pleasure were soon blending with the heady noises of casual sex across the room. He fucked her from behind, as she clung onto one of the four posts of his huge ornate bed, his sun-kissed hairy ass-cheeks clenched with vigour as he slipped in and out of her. Despite my lack of desire for him, I did find the whole situation extremely arousing, as they were clearly getting off the fact that I was there. I had an urge to climb on the bed and give her my crotch to suck on as she was being pleasured, but I didn't really want to give him the green light to move from her to me. Despite my arousal, I kept back and brought myself up with a moan and a lovely head rush. I opened my eyes, clouded from expensive alcohol and the orgasm, and saw the look on my friend's face. I think she was starting to want me as much as I wanted her. The pop star saw this too, and emptied himself into his condom. He zipped up and headed to the bathroom without saying a word. Candice was still there, ass exposed, legs apart, with quite the bemused look on her face that questioned whether that was all that she was getting. I had already righted myself and was running a brush through my hair. She looked at me amused and I shrugged. She laughed into her hand and stood up. She hunted around for the knickers he had tossed to one side less than 10 minutes ago, and as the sound of the obvious snorting was coming from the ensuite, she rolled her eyes and signaled for the door. She took my hand as we walked down the plush carpeted corridor as I joked to her, "How far then there, then?" She giggled and hit the button for the lift. We glanced at one another. It was okay. I liked you watching, though. It didn't make me orgasm, though. We stepped into the lift. I slapped the G button. She reached around and grabbed my ass while looking me dead in the eyes. "Maybe you can help with that." The door closed behind us.